Welcome to Two Woke Bonnets, a podcast where we revisit the classic TV shows of our Gen X childhoods and see how well they hold up today. With your hosts, Carol and Joey.
Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Two Woke Bonnets, where me, Carol,
and me, Joey,
have decided to rewatch Little House on the Prairie and see how it stands up to modern times. And in this episode, we have watched The Love of Johnny Johnson and If I Should Wake Before I Die.
Yes, so episodes 5 and 6 of season
1. So let's start with The Love of Johnny Johnson. Once again, we've got the J names. Johnny Johnson. Last week we had Jacob Jacobson and Jack Peters. Incidentally, our center square for our bingo cards, Justice for Jack, now has new meaning for poor Jack Peters and his, wherever the hell his dynamite was.
And if you haven't downloaded our bingo card, go to twowokebonnets.com. And if you have ideas on what we should put on the squares for the next bingo card, feel free to email us at twowokebonnets@gmail.com.
That's right. So The Love of Johnny Johnson starts with the love theme of Little House on the Prairie, which is just so 70s and so bad. It's you're going to get this all through the series. Whenever somebody's in love, you're going to get this almost dating esque music. It's horrible. But we meet Johnny Johnson, who's a new student at school, who's supposed to be 15 and looks 20. And Laura is immediately in love. Like, I'm not, yeah. It's just like, Laura, calm down. Calm down, girl. And Johnny is new in town, and he don't read good. Hasn't done a whole lot of schooling.
And he doesn't wear shoes.
Oh my God, if I had to look at that boy's dirty ass feet anymore, I was gonna get sick. It was like, can we
I was very impressed on his ability to run, though, because there was a lot of rocks in the road, even for being a studio. So
yeah, you think, I mean, how bad are these farmers that they can't even get their kid a pair of shoes? I don't, the farmers in this entire area do not seem very good at farming.
No.
Anyway,
but the way he becomes so impressive to Laura is that he uses this magic rope he has tied around his arm to lasso the newel post of the stairs going up to the school.
Yeah, and he's standing like 2 feet away from them. It's not impressive, Laura. It's really not.
It's not impressive.
He's standing 2 feet away from the damn thing. So, yeah. But she's in love. She is just gooey-eyed from the start. She doesn't even know his name at that point. But he's like, you run good for a girl. And she takes that as, oh, he loves me. He likes me. He likes me. He really likes me. But he doesn't.
And you can tell that, like, Melissa Gilbert, the actress, doesn't even really know how to do what she's doing.
No.
Because the words they put in her mouth do not come out in any way to make you think. So, anyway.
Yeah, it's obvious the direction here. I don't think Michael Landon directed this episode. It's not. Her direction here was not good. It's just like, make big eyes at him, and that's what she does the entire episode.
Yeah.
But he's not interested in Laura at all. He's interested.
Nor does he really seem to realize that she's into him.
Yeah. He's clueless. He's into Mary.
Yep. Who is a bitch.
Care less. Really could care less about Johnny Johnson.
Well, and she says that she doesn't think he's good looking.
Yeah, she says he looks like a scarecrow.
Yeah.
Well, really, okay. Can we just talk about Jonathan Gilbert for a tiny bit? Who plays Willie?
Yes.
I understand this is probably his first acting job, and he got it because of his sister.
Yes.
And he's not bad when Willie is talking. But whenever Willie is not talking, and you look at him in the background, he just has this vacant gap. Open mouth, vacant stare.
And you said you've read Alison Ingram's autobiography, Confessions of a Prairie Bitch, and I'm in the middle of it too. And she was talking about that first of all, nepotism was rife during this time. Okay. Like, literally, Melissa Gilbert had the part. They mentioned they were going to have a part for Willie, and they said, hey, Jonathan's 6, he's the right age, let's just grab him.
Get him in
And
there.
they were like, okay. And this is his first and only acting gig.
Yeah.
He doesn't really do
entire series. He lasts the entire series.
but he really has no interest in it. He's still alive today, but he really had no interest in being in it. He was volunteered. And Allison actually talks in her autobiography about the fact that he was the only one of the actors who refused to read the whole script. He didn't want to know what was going to happen. And he would literally shush the other actors while they were watching the episode as they aired because he didn't know what was happening in a lot of the scenes. He just learned his lines and that was it.
Yeah, because
so all of that, but it added to the charm of Willie. So
yeah, he's just a slack-jawed, vacant stare. But then he pipes up to say he looks like a scarecrow.
Yeah,
and that's his only line.
Yeah, which
but
is less than Carrie. Carrie has 2 this time.
Yeah, I know. Carrie speaks 2 lines this episode. It's amazing. But Laura convinces Johnny Johnson that they live in the same direction, so they should walk home together.
Yes.
And Johnny's like, hey, you want to throw rocks?
Well, she tells them that she can fall. She's trying to impress him. So she's trying to, he was impressed that she ran real fast.
Yeah, and now she's trying to show him that she can throw rocks. And he's like, Mary, you want to throw a rock? And Mary is just like, she's so, I
don't throw rocks. I'm a girl.
I'm going to be a teacher. Get the hell away from me.
Yeah.
But they're just, it's so obvious that he's into Mary and Laura's into him. And nobody's getting this. Nobody is getting this at all. But Laura goes home. This is where we get Carrie speaking a couple of lines. And she asks Ma, I'm sorry. I'm getting over bronchitis and this cough is killing me.
She has the egg.
I do. So. It was that hail of sickness. She asked Ma how she met Paul, or what Paul was like when he was younger and what men like in women. And I'm like, honey, you're what, 7 or 8?
Yeah.
Chill.
Yeah.
Chill.
But they were getting younger back, married younger. Like there's conversations about the fact that Johnny's 14 or 15 and Pa several times throughout the episode calls that being a man.
Yeah, which
so
no. But as we'll find out later on, it was considered that at this time. But she's asking Ma about what men like, and then she's asking Pa what,
So she asked Ma about it, and Ma said that she just knew that she invited Pa on a picnic because he never got around to doing it. And she said that was very unseemly at the time, but she went ahead and did it. But then she said once they started having the picnic and started talking, she realized they were kindred spirits. And I just logged onto that right away because that is something that you hear about if you are an Anne of Green Gables girl. That was in Anne of Green Gables. It was, the whole kindred spirits thing.
Incidentally, we're going to have an episode, I don't think it's this season, but next season, where they tell their backstory, Mom and Pa tell their backstory again, and it directly contradicts this.
Okay. So and the thing is that like Pa tells Laura, don't tell Ma what I'm about to tell you about how we met. So I don't know that he's telling her the real thing anyway.
Yeah. But she gets the story from both Ma and Pa, and then she decides to do a picnic with Johnny Johnson, and they go fishing, and this is where we get a nice good look at his filthy feet. Oh God. I'm like, put some shoes on, boy. Put some shoes on, Johnny.
And he's like, Where's Mary? Where's Mary? And then once he realizes Mary's not there, he eats all the cookies and he puts his cap over his face and he puts his dirty feet on the log. And Laura's like, oh, this is romantic.
Yeah, and she catches like 8 fish and he catches 2.
Yeah.
Do you want some of my fish? No, this is good enough for me and my paw. And I love how Jack, the dog,
starts following him.
Jack was going to jump ship. Jack was like, I bet this guy won't make me walk to Kansas.
Yeah. So it's like everybody has a crush on it. So Laura first asks Ma. Ma talks about the picnic, so she decides to invite Johnny on a picnic. And she runs back and forth to the school 3 times to try to get all the things out. Don't worry, I'm a good cook.
Yeah.
You know, all that kind of stuff. Then that doesn't go so well. So after dinner of all that fish that she caught, she comes down and asks Pa how they met. And she goes down because she says she needs to use the outhouse house. So this is the first mention of using the outhouse. And then once she talks to Pa for a while, and she has another idea of what to do.
She just goes back to bed.
She goes back and Pa says, didn't you have to use the outhouse? She said, not anymore. So what happened? Did she pee down her leg?
Like, I have my bingo stopper ready for the bingo card. Child goes to outhouse, and no,
go
to the outhouse.
You do not get to stop. So, and then when she comes back with all the fish, can we just point out that Carrie is standing in the middle of the yard all by herself? Ma and Pa are canoodling over by the flowers.
We do get our Charles here because he's like kissing her neck.
And Carrie's just standing there alone, like, come hit me with the paw, with the carriage paw, you know.
So she goes to talk to Pa again. Pa is building a high chair for Carrie, and I'm like, isn't Carrie a little bit big at this point for a
girl standing in the field all by herself? But now she needs a high chair.
Maybe a little booster seat, but why do you need a high chair at this point?
Yeah,
she's a little old for it. But Johnny Johnson comes by, and Laura's like, Johnny Johnson, and runs inside and gussies up her hair.
I'm sorry. So first he builds the high chair. Okay.
Yeah, because Johnny comes at that point.
Because at one point he builds the fish cage. Pa builds the fish cage.
That's the
okay, that's the next.
I'm not sure. But Johnny Johnson shows up and she's like, Johnny Johnson. And she goes to fix her hair. Oddly, she does not douse herself in lemon verbena.
I thought for sure.
I was expecting the jar to come out, the bottle to come out, but he's here to ask Mary to help him learn to read.
Yes.
And Mary's polite and wants to be a teacher, so she says, sure. And he takes that as, oh my gosh, she loves me.
Well, here's my chance with her. And he walks into the house with the dirty feet. Have we forgotten how Ma used to broom the dirt floor?
But she's okay with filthy feet.
Yeah, but like Laura obviously gets upset about it because she goes running off. She leaves the basket of eggs, right?
Yeah, she just drops it.
And so she's so upset that Ma walks all the way into town right at recess just to sit down with Miss Beadle for 3 minutes. Both of the women acknowledge that Laura has a huge crush on Johnny Johnson. And Ma goes, from my teaching days, it seems to me that sometimes these are hot and fast things, that once she'll soon move on to something else, right? And Mrs. Beadle goes, yes, I have no children, but I can advise you this
will happen.
Yeah.
But and Miss Beadle's like, and of course Johnny has eyes for Mary. And Mary is not interested in Johnny.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that does not stop Johnny from carving her initials in the damn sweetheart tree.
Well, and telling Laura, come and meet me at the sweetheart
tree. What is this kid's problem? Because this seems incredibly rude.
Just very,
he's so blind.
Mary literally calls him dumber than a stump after he writes the name on the tree.
Yeah.
So she's just cut that boy off at the knees.
She has no interest in this boy at all. And he's carving her name in the tree. And I love the fact that the carving is already brown.
Yeah. We wanted to make sure it showed up on camera. And then there's this huge awkward moment and they're all sitting there staring at each other before, Laura blows up at Mary. But again, this would be a good time for Carrie to say something, but does she say anything?
No.
No.
She just sits there. She just sits there in her high chair that she doesn't really need because it's not all that much taller than the other chairs of the table.
No.
But this is also right before that, Pa is talking to Ma, and Mom's like, oh, Johnny has a thing for Mary. And he's like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
How old is this boy? He's damn near a man. You best get away from my girls.
Yeah.
He doesn't curse.
No.
But yeah, he suddenly is like, oh my gosh, he's an adult. He needs to stay away from Mary. But yeah, the actual inviting Laura to the sweetheart tree. How blind does this 15-year-old boy need to be to actually do that? It's completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
And she, of course, is like devastated. It's the most tragical thing that ever happened to her.
Yes. Not like losing her dog.
Yeah.
Not, all this other stuff she went through. It's this boy. And who several times makes it clear he runs up to catch up with Mary.
Yep.
Like they have this fight, and so they go trailing behind, and she's just tuckered out. So he's like, oh, okay, well, then I'll just catch up with Mary. So, over and over again. But, yeah. So
but in the end, they make up because, your sister's more important than this stupid boy. And you shouldn't be mad at each other. And we don't even get a resolution.
Yeah.
The episode literally just ends.
Yeah, that's just it. So Johnny Johnson is played by Mitch Vogel. Mitch Vogel was in 3 episodes of Gunsmoke, but he was also in the last 2 seasons of Bonanza.
Yeah.
And literally he was brought in to replace Michael Landon, because Michael Landon was in his 30s at that point. And so it was a little long in the tooth to be getting all the life lessons from Pa. So Mitch Vogel came in as Jamie Cartwright. And so that way Pa could reiterate all the lessons he had taught to little Joe in the previous seasons.
Yep.
To do that. So, and Mitch is one of those people. He also ends up on Murder, She Wrote down the road and all that kind of stuff.
We cannot put Johnny Johnson on our disappeared list, however, because he will show up again.
He will show up again.
Yeah.
I do want to point out that there's one point where Laura is reading from the Dickie Bird Land book. So that book gets mentioned a lot, and we actually see the book with the cover and everything. Mm-hmm. And so she's reading from that. So let's talk about Mrs. Beadle just a little bit. So Miss Beadle is played by Charlotte Stewart. Mm-hmm. So she also Bonanza and Gunsmoke, and she also appears in Highway to Heaven. But prior to being on this, she was actually not only in Twin Peaks later on, but she was Madam X in Eraserhead.
Very excellent in Eraserhead. Yeah. One of my favorite movies.
Yes.
So whenever I see Miss Beadle, all I think is Mary and her deformed baby in Eraserhead.
Spoiler.
So. Well, seriously, if you don't know the baby from Eraserhead, it's horrifying. I find her incredibly. I think she's a pretty good actress. She actually shows up in the Tremors.
Yes.
As well. I have her memoir lined up after Karen Grossley's memoir.
I have her memoir right here on the stairs. You can't see that. By the way, do you like my Walnut Grove background?
Yes, that's very nice.
Thank you.
But
I wanted to show the lake, and of course, my whole body covers the lake. But lake. So
it took 5 years, I think, to film Eraserhead. So Jack Nance had to keep that hairstyle for 5 years.
That's crazy.
I think she was actually working on Eraserhead while a few seasons of Little House was still going on.
Yeah.
So she would go back and forth. She doesn't appear in all of Little House. As well, but I like Miss Beadle.
Yes.
I like
and Allison Ingram actually talks about the fact that Miss Beadle, that Charlotte Stewart was just like Miss Beadle, that every kid was obsessed with her. So Laura does a better job of being googly-eyed with Miss Beadle, than she does with Johnny.
Yeah.
It's clear that Melissa Gilbert at that time has no real in-depth interest in boys.
And frankly, I never found Mitch Vogel to be very attractive.
No, I feel like if I'd been more cognizant, if social media was more of a thing back when this episode was aired, it was because it was a crossover from Bonanza. It would have been, he would, unlike some of the others that were bit part players in different episodes of Bonanza, he was in like 48 episodes.
Yeah.
People
So
knew who he
a
was.
major part of it.
So it was a reconnection moment. So, and it was one way of them to ensure that people who like Bonanza were going to come and watch Little House because he was a character from that. So I really feel like that was the purpose of that more than anything else. So
yeah. And that's The Love of Johnny Johnson. It's pretty much it's an okay episode.
Yeah.
It just,
you see a little bit of Nellie Oleson in this because we haven't seen her since Country Girls, but she loses the spelling bee against Mary, and we reestablish that Mary's the smart one.
The smart one. And yeah, that's going to come into play a lot later in the season. That Mary is the really intelligent one of the schoolhouse.
And yet Laura ends up being the author. So
true. But hey, Mary had some issues.
Spoilers. No, don't let me see. Don't let me see what happens to Mary.
We'll go in blind on that one.
All right, let's go to the good
Johnny
one.
Johnson. The next episode is If I Should Wake Before I Die. Oh my gosh, I keep wanting to do the actual.
Because very clever. Very clever.
If I Should Die Before. I like this episode, actually.
Yeah, and this is one of those episodes where if it was any other show, any other season, you would say, this is how they do a spin-off, right? Like they take some major characters and the Ingalls become a very minor part of this story. So
right. Because this is focusing on Miss Amy Hearn, who is 80, lives with her friend Miss Maddie, who also just turned 80. And
12 days apart.
Yeah, 12 days apart. We learned that over and over. Miss Amy is Irish, I think.
Yes.
Her children are far more Irish than she is, which is unusual. But
maybe their daddy was Irish.
Birthday. Yeah. Miss Maddie has her 80th birthday, and they're going to throw her a big party, but her daughter Eliza does not come. Sends a letter and says, I can't get away. And that just kills Miss Maddie right there.
Her daughter Betty Lynn.
Oh, Betty Lynn. Okay, Eliza.
And you see the picture, and that just a little eye candy on that. Betty Lynn. It's a picture of Eliza's Betty Lynn, and that's Thelma Lou, who was on the Andy Griffith Show. So,
that's right. So Miss Maddie dies.
Our second death. Our third time talking about death, but our second death. Okay.
Yeah. Well, this episode
French actually directed this episode, so you don't see Victor French in here. You don't see Mr. Edwards in here, but he directed the whole show. So.
And finally, Eliza finally shows up for not Eliza. Her daughter finally shows up for her funeral, and Miss Amy hears Laura say, "Well, this just seems wrong. We should be talking to people before they die rather than after."
Yeah.
And she gets this idea that she has not seen her 3 children in years. As a matter of fact, her youngest son, she doesn't even know if he's alive. This guy
12 years. 12 years.
Yeah.
And he was the favorite. Yeah.
So she's like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend that I die and have a wake, and then I'll show up and I'll be able to see my kids. And she enlists Charles and Doc Baker, who are so against this idea that I started to get really irritated with them. Particularly Dr. Baker, who's like, I'm not going to do this, Amy. If
my reputation will be at stake.
If you were any younger, I'd throw you over my knee. I'm like, okay, Hiram, you are not.
Because first she brings them in and pretends like she really sick. And she's gonna die, and she gets them to promise that they will do certain things for her wake and her funeral. And as soon as she gets them to say that they will do that, and they'll start working on it right now, she jumps up and said, okay, that's all settled. Puts on her bathrobe, and she's like, okay, let's do this thing. So
And Hiram like threatens to spank her. It's really weird.
Yeah, he's like, if you weren't 80 years old, I'd put you over my knee and spank you. Yep.
But they finally agree that they're going to do this. And she goes into hiding at the Ingalls place. And Doc Baker sends word to her 3 kids that she's dead. I'm telling you, I'm going to die of the cough.
Don't die.
I don't know how they found Andy, which is her youngest son, but they found him. And they pull in a priest. I'm assuming she's Catholic because they don't have Reverend Oleson do this. They pull in a priest.
Father Gorman.
Yeah. And
fresh
she
from the seminary.
She lies to him and says that she's a good friend of Amy Hearn. Oh my gosh, she just lays it on thick how wonderful Amy was.
Amy O'Hara Hearn. So it was her maiden name. Yep.
Yeah. So okay, so she's from the.
But she convinces Ma. Well, she convinces Pa. Then Pa convinces Doc Baker. Then Ma says absolutely
like, I'm not going to be a party to this.
And then she goes in and says all this stuff. Meanwhile, Pa and Carrie, we do have a cute moment with Carrie, where Carrie is pacing back and forth on the buckboard, just like Pa's pacing back and forth in the dirt. And Pa comes out and she goes, well, that's settled. And she goes, what's settled? You know, and she's like, well, I'm going to make the birthday cake.
Yeah. So she convinced Ma.
Yeah.
There's this really weird moment where Laura and Mary are going to sleep, and Laura tells Mary that going to sleep is just like dying. I'm like, damn, Laura, it got dark there for a moment.
Yes.
And suddenly Mary can't sleep.
Yes.
So, just a weird, odd, dark moment. And then
the father arrives. First of all, can we talk about how he rides this horse? He's got his feet straight out, like he's a non-bendable Barbie doll. He doesn't even have his feet in the stirrups. It's just like a V shape, his legs.
This actor has no idea how to ride a horse.
Yeah. And so
he just about as well as Michael Landon fake plays a fiddle.
Oh my God, don't even talk about it. His hands do not move. Anyway, so Father Gorman comes in, and then all of a sudden Amy comes out, and you think for sure she's going to convince him the way she did everybody else. And then Pa looks out the window, and at first you think Pa's like, oh God, she's sucking him in just the way she sucked Ma in. Nope, Pa's like, well, I guess we don't need this birthday cake. And breaks off half of the layer of cake and just starts eating it in his hand. And nobody says anything about the fact that now Ma's going to have to make this whole other layer. Like, do we not just lose a field of wheat? And did you not have to go get your best friend or your friend blown up so you could have some money? Like, why don't you wait until she comes back in before you start eating the cake? You know,
well, girls, you can have the icing.
And they never touch it. They're like, no.
Which is good because she comes in and, of course, she's lied to him and said that she was just a really good friend of Amy. There's also a weird moment where she's packing for this, little hideaway at the Ingalls, and Doc Baker is like, just flustered by her underwear.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on, Doc, you're a doctor. You have birthed some of these babies in this town.
You have seen more naked people than anybody.
You've seen underwear, dear.
Yeah.
Doc Baker's weird in this episode. But so the wake happens and all of the kids show up. Well,
and Carrie has her moment. What they doing? What they doing?
Yeah. She says one line.
Yeah.
But the wake happens and 2 of her kids show up. And I'm pretty sure that actor who played her oldest son was the father from Family.
Yes.
It looked remarkably like him. I watched a lot of 70s TV shows. But he's arguing with his sister, and for some reason her kids are way more Irish than she was.
Yeah.
And she's like in this veil, this black dress and this veil, and she's just watching everything.
And nobody knows who she is, although the veil's very see-through.
Yeah, no. The father's like, oh, that's a good friend of Amy's, just knew her very well. Harriet has a freak out moment about the cake. And I'm like, Jesus, Harriet, it's cake.
Yeah.
Oh, I just don't think this is appropriate for a wake. It's an Irish wake. There'd be whiskey and cake all over the place.
Yeah.
But so they keep going, and then Andy shows up. Her son that hasn't contacted her in 12 years.
That she assumed was dead. Yeah.
And he's still in the freaking military because he's in his military uniform. I'm like, you know, they have mail calls in the military. He could have written her a postcard at any time during this 12 years and easily had it sent, and he didn't. And I'm like, you are just a bad son. You're a terrible, terrible son. But he shows up and they're like, oh, Andy, you're still here. And then she throws back her veil and lays into her 3 children about wanting to see them before she dies. Yes. And that's why she did all this. I shouldn't have to do all this to see my grandchildren.
Who, the grandchildren, seeing their grandma alive, not one of them comes over and says anything. The one stays seated with Laura and Mary and Carrie. The other one that is over with Harriet and those guys stays over there.
Yeah.
Like, nobody comes over. The kids, like, I can understand, have the children have their moment, especially when the mom was yelling at it. But then when they started hugging, why didn't the kids come up? Why didn't the other people come up? But they stay there.
I mean, have they met her before? Would you not be like, come meet your grandmother? This is, such and such, and this is Carl Jr. or whatever. Yeah. But no, they're just off to the side. They're going, talking with Mary and Laura. And
but Pa does get a little teary-eyed at all of this.
A little teary-eyed there. And there is one, Pa cried. There is one Charles. And then he brings out the fiddle. I'm like, oh God, he brought the fiddle.
He brings out the fiddle a couple times. And so we start to see this. I thought it was very interesting. And we didn't mention this in the last episode. But, when Mr. Edwards was doing his homecoming, that's the first time we really see Caroline dancing. And Caroline dances with Grace and Mr. Edwards while Pa plays, and they're dancing around. And then Pa yells out to Doc Baker, "You are allowed to dance with my wife." And everybody laughs at that. And then everybody's dancing. And the 3 kids join hand and are dancing around the mom and all that kind of stuff. But
Carolyn want to dance with Doc Baker?
I know, she really didn't get a choice, did she? No. She's like, okay, guess I got to do this. You've announced it full of a full group now. So, I do want to point something out. So in this particular episode, we do see the town again, right? And we had talked about how in the very first season episode, not the pilot, but the very first Walnut Grove season, we see O'Brien's or whatever, O'Neill's feed and seed, right? And remember, Hanson does the mill. He does not do the feed and seed unless but we see the feed and seed this time, but somehow O'Neill's name, which was above it, that Pa put up there proudly, is gone.
He's gone.
So wherever O'Neill was, he got run out of town, clearly.
I think Larson. I think
Lars Hanson had to take it over because, of the drought or whatever. So we do see, so I had mentioned that it seemed like the feed and seed just got pulled down. Clearly, they did not pull it down. They just shot creatively. But now the O'Neill's name is clearly gone. Yeah. So let's talk about some of the special actors in this, if it's okay. Did you have? So
no, Ruth, I mean the episode just ends with Pa playing the fiddle.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put Amy Hearn on the disappeared list. She doesn't ever appear again, but she's 80, so I'm assuming she died soon after.
So this is the interesting thing. So Ruth McDavid, who is Maddie in the beginning, who was playing the harpsichord and stuff like that. She was on episodes of Gunsmoke. No Bonanza, but just on Gunsmoke. Josephine Hutchinson, who played Amy, was on Gunsmoke. She was also on several episodes of Bonanza, so possibly was met there. Yeah. But the sad thing is, or the interesting thing is this is the actual last thing she ever taped. The reason why she doesn't reappear again, she died.
She died. Yeah, I kind of agree.
Henry Olek, who was the father Gorman, he was in Gunsmoke. And then the guy who played
learned to ride a freaking horse. Oh my god!
Yeah, and Herman Poppy, who played Andy, the tall young guy, at the end, he was also in Gunsmoke. So all 4 of those characters were in Gunsmoke, and then of course we already talked about the fact that the picture of Eliza, which was Betty Lynn, who played Thelma Lou and Andy Griffith.
Yeah.
But,
I wonder if they had to pay her for that. Did she get residuals for using her picture?
I don't know how that works, but it is interesting. So, but yeah, so part of the cavalcade of actors
I
definitely.
like this episode.
is
I don't understand why the townfolk are so like shocked or amazed by Amy's plan. It seems like a very good plan.
Yeah.
I don't
It's
even know
not
why
unreasonable.
I don't know why she would have to include a priest, however. I mean, you could say I'm doing a wake and just not invite the priest.
I think the priest was the one that was supposed to be contacting the kids.
The kids.
Yeah.
Because she told Charles and Hiram to hunt down Andy, which they apparently did. But
Yeah.
and he's still in the military. That just killed me because it's like you're still in the military. I know they did mail runs.
Yeah.
And you had no decency to just tell your mom you're alive.
Yeah.
What an
Like,
asshole.
you know, and it's not like he was secret police or anything like that.
Yeah,
so
you're not an MI5, dude. You're just some schmo.
we're just some schmo. So
But this is a good episode. I thought it was, it was well directed by Victor French. I thought it was actually a nice idea. The Ingalls are kind of sidelined here. At least the girls definitely are. I mean, you get a couple of.
they're the framework for the story. You know,
Yeah.
It was probably a story somebody had written and they were like, hey, we want to use this in one of our properties. Here's a great way to do it.
Yeah.
I have
Somebody
to
probably
say
has a title.
that the picture that they use on IMDb is just the picture of her in that black mantle with it pulled back. Now that picture is actually she's wearing that same outfit when she goes to Maddie's funeral.
Yeah.
But she has the veil back instead of over her face. And it's a very haunting picture. It reminds
She's like the
me.
only person in town that owns a black dress.
Yeah. Ma only had the black clip in her hair.
Yeah.
But the picture that, if you go on IMDb, is very reminiscent to me of the picture from the French Lieutenant's woman with Meryl Streep. It's that same look. So very goth. All right. So we've got
episode. So we had one paw cries and one Charles.
Yep. And Carrie did speak a little bit.
A little bit. Nobody goes to the outhouse though.
Nope. But Johnny, not in the second episode. No.
No. Actually, but she doesn't in the Johnny episode either.
No.
She said she's going to, but
she said she's going to it. So,
yeah.
So next episode, 7 and 8.
Yep. Town party, country party. Which, oh my God. Yeah, that one's fun. And Ma's holiday. So we get a lot of Carrie in that one. So that'll be
in 8. And in 7, we see the return of Nellie in a real way.
In a real way, yes. So, in her total bitchy self.
Plus a special guest star that you may recognize. So.
Oh yeah. That one is. I'm going to have opinions on that one.
Yeah, we have many opinions. Well, thank you for coming on the journey with us. Remember, if you'd like to get your bingo card, go to twowokebonnets.com. If you have suggestions for us on what we should add to our next bingo card or other things we should start keeping track of, because Harriet Oleson, the only crime she potentially committed was making us stink about the birthday cake.
She got the cake for some reason. I mean,
yeah, like get over it.
It's because Carolyn put a birthday candle in it, which was
a little macabre. You could have saved that till we knew why.
It was Amy's 80th birthday that she decided to hold the wake on.
Yeah,
you could have held off on that.
Well. And let's be clear, there was no other indication that it was birthday cake except for the candle, which was not originally in it when she unveiled it.
It was just a chocolate cake.
So for Harriet Nelson to be like, is that a? Yeah, like, of course you have a cake at a wake. Like, why would you not? Chocolate is the answer to everything. So
makes people happy.
All right.
Join us next time for Two Woke Bonnets.
Two Woke Bonnets, tell your friends. Bye. Oh, Charles. Oh, Charles. Thanks, Mikey.
Thanks for listening to Two Woke Bonnets. To find out more and to download your bingo card, visit twowokebonnets.com. And don't forget to like and subscribe wherever fine video and audio podcasts are played.